Darth Vader dominated the galaxy through fear and power for 3 decades. The Sith Lord who could end lives with a gesture, who conquered entire worlds in the Emperor's name, who transformed from the Chosen One into the Empire's most terrifying enforcer. Throughout his reign, he seemed unstoppable, surviving injuries that would kill ordinary beings. But when Emperor Palpatine's Force lightning struck him aboard the Death Star, this seemingly invincible warrior fell within moments and died shortly after. The same electrical assault that Luke endured for much longer proved instantly fatal to one of the most powerful Force users in galactic history. This apparent contradiction has puzzled fans for decades and reveals something far more sinister about the relationship between master and apprentice. Several interconnected factors explain this mystery, and when examined together, they expose a decades-long manipulation that turned Vader's greatest asset into his ultimate vulnerability. The confrontation begins when Luke defeats Vader in their final lightsaber duel aboard the second Death Star. Many believe Vader deliberately allowed this defeat, having sensed the conflict within his son and recognizing Palpatine's trap. When Luke refuses the Emperor's demand to execute his fallen father and claim his place as a Sith apprentice, Palpatine's rage erupts. The Emperor unleashes torrents of Force lightning into Luke's body, causing the young Jedi to convulse in agony as he cries out for help. In this critical moment, the internal war between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader reaches its climax. Vader looks from his suffering son to his merciless master, and for the first time in 20 years, Anakin emerges victorious. Vader seizes Palpatine and hurls him into the Death Star's reactor shaft, seemingly destroying the most powerful Sith Lord in galactic history. But this act of redemption comes at the ultimate cost. Within moments, Vader's breathing becomes labored, his systems begin failing, and he collapses. The man who survived being burned alive on Mustafar dies from what appears to be a relatively brief exposure to Force lightning. Multiple theories attempt to explain this apparent weakness, and the truth involves a perfect storm of deliberate sabotage, physical vulnerability, and spiritual transformation. Each factor alone might not have been fatal, but together they created the conditions for the galaxy's most feared enforcer to fall to his master's final attack. Vader ranks among the most formidable Force wielders in history, recognized across the galaxy as the prophesied Chosen One. Yet Palpatine exploited every opportunity while constructing Vader's life support system to install hidden vulnerabilities designed to maintain control. While the cybernetics granted him incredible strength and allowed his mutilated body to function, they simultaneously served as shackles to prevent any challenge to Imperial authority. This manipulation runs far deeper than surface-level design flaws. When Palpatine recovered Anakin's broken form from Mustafar, the injuries were catastrophic. Severed limbs, destroyed lungs, massive burns across his entire body. The Emperor possessed the resources to provide cutting-edge medical technology, yet he deliberately chose antiquated, painful, and restrictive components for Vader's reconstruction. The technology powering Vader's suit lagged decades behind galactic standards. Advanced cybernetics existed throughout the galaxy. General Grievous had received mechanical augmentations that made him faster and deadlier than most Jedi Knights. Luke's own prosthetic hand functioned flawlessly with natural dexterity and sensation. Yet Vader's systems remained clunky, inefficient, and prone to malfunction. Despite being engineered under direct Sith supervision, the suit contained a catastrophic design flaw: extreme susceptibility to electrical attacks. Why would Palpatine permit such a vulnerability that could eliminate Vader with a simple gesture? This weakness served as the ultimate insurance policy, ensuring the apprentice could never successfully challenge his master. The helmet severely restricted Vader's sensory input, limiting his vision and hearing while keeping him in perpetual discomfort. This sensory deprivation prevented him from achieving full environmental awareness, creating a tactical disadvantage that could prove decisive in combat situations. Most cruelly, the suit inflicted constant physical torment. Embedded needles, electrical feedback systems, and pressure points ensured Vader experienced unrelenting pain every moment of his existence. While Sith philosophy teaches that suffering fuels power through anger, this agony also created psychological dependency and emotional instability that Palpatine could exploit for control. According to technical specifications from Darth Vader, a 3D reconstruction log, his chest control panel represented the most vulnerable component of his entire system. This device regulated 90% of his bodily functions through thousands of microneedles embedded throughout his flesh. These needles collected continuous biological data while maintaining direct connections to his central nervous system. The control box contained multiple buttons that could literally end Vader's life with a single press. One particular red button served as a complete system reset, leaving him completely helpless during the reboot process. Someone actually tried to exploit this weakness. Antennis Tremaine, a Jedi turned Inquisitor, managed to hit the exact right button on Vader's chest panel during a confrontation. Vader collapsed, struggling to breathe, completely vulnerable. If Tremaine had been quicker, the Empire's reign of terror could have ended right there. When Vader grasps Palpatine and lifts him overhead, the Emperor's Force lightning courses directly through his helmet and armor plating. The electrical discharge doesn't simply damage external components. It penetrates every system keeping Vader alive. His breathing immediately becomes erratic and labored as critical life support functions begin cascading failures. Recognizing that his respiratory apparatus and cardiac regulators are beyond repair, Vader makes a final request. He asks Luke to remove his helmet so he can see his son with his own eyes, knowing this action will accelerate his death. Luke understands the consequences but honors his father's wishes, allowing Vader to die on his own terms rather than prolonging his suffering. The Return of the Jedi novelization provides disturbing details about the lightning's effects on Vader's body. The electrical energy tears through his cybernetic skeleton and prosthetic limbs, fracturing artificial bones and sending feedback through his nervous system. The discharge penetrates his chest cavity, attacking his already damaged heart and synthetic organs with devastating results. When Force lightning struck this control matrix, it didn't merely cause equipment failure. It sent electrical feedback through every nerve ending in his body simultaneously. The pain would have been beyond human comprehension, while the system damage left him unable to breathe, regulate his heartbeat, or maintain basic organ function. Vader's body was a patchwork of scar tissue and mechanical replacements. His lungs were synthetic, his limbs prosthetic, his heart barely functional. The Force lightning found every weakness, every point where flesh met machine, and exploited it ruthlessly. The novel describes how Vader used every last ounce of his strength to lift Palpatine. His bones were already fracturing, his organs shutting down, but he held on long enough to complete his final act of redemption. The most profound explanation involves Vader's relationship with the dark side of the Force itself. As he embraces redemption and allows light to flow through him, he simultaneously releases his grip on the dark side energies that had sustained his broken body for decades. Sith Lords possess documented abilities to use dark side power for extending life beyond natural limits, even when facing mortal injuries. This technique requires intense emotional fuel, hatred, anger, fear, and suffering to maintain the connection necessary for survival. In Path of Destruction, Darth Bane suffers fatal poisoning, but calls upon dark side energy to sustain his life long enough to find an antidote. The process demands that he commit murder to generate sufficient rage and hatred for the technique to function effectively. Darth Maul demonstrates this principle dramatically when Obi-Wan bisects him during their duel on Naboo. His hatred for the Jedi Knight burns so intensely that it keeps him alive, despite being cut in half and falling into a reactor shaft. Years later, he returned stronger than before, sustained entirely by his desire for revenge. Anakin himself employed this technique on Mustafar after Obi-Wan severed his limbs and left him burning beside the lava flow. His guilt over Padmé's death, his rage at his former master's betrayal, and his self-hatred provided the emotional fuel necessary to cling to life until Palpatine's arrival. For 20 years, Vader had been unconsciously using this same dark side technique. His body should have died from his injuries decades earlier, but his anger, guilt, and suffering created an artificial life support system, more powerful than any technology. The dark side was literally holding his broken form together through sheer force of will and emotional torment. When Vader chooses to save Luke, Anakin Skywalker finally defeats his dark alter ego. Love conquers hatred, compassion overcomes rage, and redemption replaces revenge. In that moment of spiritual transformation, Vader stops drawing upon the dark side energies that had sustained him since Mustafar. Without this artificial sustenance, his body finally acknowledges the truth that had been suppressed for decades. He was dying, and had been dying since his duel with Obi-Wan. Only dark side power had prevented his natural death, and by choosing the light, he accepts the consequences of his physical condition. Star Wars Legends reveals that Vader understood his suit's limitations and made repeated attempts to upgrade its components. He sought ways to move more freely, reduce his constant pain, and improve his combat effectiveness. However, Palpatine consistently sabotaged these efforts, convincing Vader that improvements were either impossible or unnecessary. The Emperor deliberately fostered the belief that Vader's crippled condition reflected his personal worth and capabilities. This psychological manipulation created a prison more effective than any physical restraint. Vader became convinced that his suffering was deserved punishment for his failures. Losing Padme, betraying the Jedi, and falling to Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Palpatine reinforced this conditioning by positioning himself as Vader's only source of support and salvation. After losing everything he valued, Vader developed an unhealthy dependence on the very person who had orchestrated his downfall. This created a cycle of abuse where the victim becomes grateful to their tormentor for providing relief from suffering that the tormentor originally caused. The most insidious aspect of this manipulation was how it weaponized hope and loyalty against Vader himself. He chose to believe that Palpatine represented his only path to meaning and purpose after his catastrophic losses. This emotional dependency proved more binding than any physical restraint or technological limitation. Vader's thinking became as trapped as his body within the mechanical suit. Fear of failure, guilt over past actions, and learned helplessness combined to create a mental cage that prevented him from challenging his master's authority. Even when he recognized the suit's flaws, he couldn't break free from the psychological conditioning that kept him subservient. Palpatine didn't just trap Vader physically, he trapped him in a mental cage. The Emperor reminded Vader of his failures constantly. Every single twitch of pain that he felt from his suit felt like it was deserved. Vader wasn't just afraid of Palpatine's power, he was afraid of himself. When he finally chooses to save Luke, he's not just selecting redemption over damnation. He's choosing to stop running from the consequences of his choices and accept responsibility for his actions. The guilt over the younglings' massacre, Padme's death, and the Jedi Purge all culminate in that moment of self-sacrifice aboard the Death Star. In reality, Vader's death resulted from the convergence of multiple devastating factors. His suit contained deliberate vulnerabilities to Force lightning that caused immediate system failures. His organs, already damaged beyond natural healing, couldn't withstand the electrical assault. His dependence on dark side energy to sustain life ended when he chose redemption over revenge. While he might have survived any single factor through Force techniques or technological backup systems, the combination proved insurmountable. Palpatine's decades-long manipulation had created the perfect conditions for his apprentice's destruction, the moment Vader chose love over hatred. Vader's death wasn't the result of weakness or poor engineering. It was the inevitable conclusion of the most sophisticated control system ever devised. Palpatine had spent 20 years ensuring that his apprentice's moment of redemption would also be his last. Yet in choosing to save Luke despite knowing the cost, Anakin Skywalker finally fulfilled his destiny as the Chosen One, bringing balance to the Force and hope to a galaxy that had forgotten both. The man who had terrorized star systems died not from frailty, but from the ultimate demonstration of strength. Choosing love over power, even when that choice meant death. So what do you think? Was Vader's death the result of Palpatine's manipulation, his body finally giving out, or his choice to abandon the dark side? Drop your theory in the comments below and let me know which explanation makes the most sense to you. If this deep dive into Vader's final moments blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe for more Star Wars breakdowns that reveal the hidden truths behind your favorite characters. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.